Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Case Study QB, and I'm here with my man Carlito. You know, we usually do our show, Case Studies QB's Political Junkies, every Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But, you know, I felt like I wanted to talk to the people, so we calling this the PJ Quickie. It's just me and Carlito. We want to talk about the filibuster, and then we're going to talk about I want to talk about Gary Chambers and him going up against a fake progressive. So the first things first. So we hear the latest news about the filibuster. You know, Mitch McConnell finally caved, and he is not going to continue to push the issue. He's going to allow the Senate to form a government agreement of the rules, and finally, our man Bernie Sanders is going to get seated. So let me hand it off to my guy Carlito so he can talk to you about the filibuster a little bit, and then I want to come back and we're going to talk about some strategy. If we was in a perfect world, if we had a progressive Illuminati, if we can all come together. Basically, what I'm is a funny way of me saying that all of the thought leaders come together and try to push these corporatist Democrats, moderate Democrats. Well, I'll talk about some strategies that we could use. Let me hand it off. Go ahead, Carlito.
Yeah, man. So thanks to Case Study QB, putting this thing together. We always talk amongst ourselves about politics, but being involved with him, he kind of gave me the motivation to read up more about it, be more informed. Because it's really important for our democracy. And I talked a little bit about the filibuster before, not in any depth, because I'm not an expert. We just junkies. We're not pundits. We're just learning, trying to get
Yeah,
informed, trying to change the world, doing our little
exactly.
piece. So, I was trying to learn a little bit about the filibuster so I know what I'm talking about and why it's such a big deal. And, you know, really not to my surprise, like almost everything in this country, there's always some kind of racism involved, man. And it's crazy. When we talked about the electoral college, it was just racism to try to give the southern states more power.
Mm-hmm.
Filibuster was the same thing, man. People like Mitch McConnell and others, they trying to talk about preserving the sanctity, minority rights. But really, the filibuster wasn't even invented when the founding founders, were around. The constitutionalism they talk about,
Yeah.
it wasn't around. It wasn't around back then. As a matter of fact, filibuster as we know it wasn't even invented. They were all dead by the time it really came about with John C. Calhoun, somebody that was mentioned before. This is the guy that has a statue or a portrait in the Confederate of in the in Congress. If you remember that picture, the dude with the Confederate flag inside Congress on January
Yeah.
6th,
Yeah,
there was a
remember,
picture
yeah.
of Calhoun in the back, man.
Okay. Okay.
So this is a senator from South Carolina, and this is a dude that was filibustering, as you can imagine, for the minority in this case was slave owner, plantation owners of the South.
Mm.
So that's why he tried to protect. This is a guy that said not only that the slave was a necessary evil, like some people like to say, he actually said he was a good thing. That slavery was the best thing that happened to a lot of black people, because those
Wow.
savages from Africa, they're able to be civilized, uh, have some kind of learn some kind of morality from the white people here. Uh, all kinds of garbage is trying to justify what he was doing. So
Yeah.
that's really the beginning of the filibuster as we know it, and it's basically a way to obstruct legislation.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely that has a historic, and there was a video I saw of Obama recently talking about at John Lewis funeral, talking about getting rid of the filibuster so that we can move forward legislation. His John Lewis's legislation of civil rights to we have to get rid of the filibuster so that we can get that passed or make it easier to pass. And now we see Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin who came out, and on one side it allowed, when they came out and they said they're going to be against the filibuster. Mitch McConnell, it gave him enough confidence to say, okay, you know what, let's form the government, let's solidify the Senate rules, because he feels that they are going to stick to that. So one of the strategies that I was thinking, first of all, we have to put immense pressure on Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. So we saw recently Joe Manchin he felt the heat when I believe it was Trent Corbin, I believe his name. Be wrong, but and he formed a pack that when they raised money, they put out TV ads or radio ads against Joe Manchin, saying that he was against the $2,000 checks.
Mhm.
And when they did that, he changed his tone on being against it. So if we could pressure him that way, I think he can be pushed. So that's one thing that we can start. Hopefully they can change, modify. It was a pact that hopefully they can modify their strategy and come out with radio ads saying that we need to filibuster. We need to get rid of the filibuster. We need Joe Manchin to get rid of the filibuster. So another thing is getting a primary for both Joe Manchin and for Kristen Sinema, somebody from the left. Now I talked to somebody that's very familiar with West Virginian politics, and I was wondering if Richard Ojeda. You remember Richard Ojeda, Carlito?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah, I was thinking about him if he can run against Joe Manchin, but she's close to West Virginian politics, and she said unfortunately, like Joe Manchin just
Mm,
runs the place. I'm still optimistic that hopefully we could find somebody because you look at in Kentucky, Charles Booker came out of nowhere, and he's a
right.
very charismatic person. And we also have Paula Jean Swearengin. Unfortunately, she tried twice. She tried to bite twice at the apple, and she went up against Joe Manchin the first time, and then she went up against the other person, and she lost both times. So I think probably at this point we'll have to find somebody new. But just the threat, as we can see with Chuck Schumer and AOC, just the threat of a progressive or a person who's legitimately
Right.
can, take their seat, it causes them to move a little bit to the left.
Yeah, Ojeda would have been good because you need somebody that already has some
Yeah,
to challenge somebody as big
that's
as
true.
Manchin and
Hmm.
Schumer. You need somebody that already has a following, somebody that's charismatic. AOC. I don't know if she's going to do it, but the threat is there,
Yeah,
and but she has the weight. She has the social media following. She has legislative chops now that she's been in Congress for a couple of years. She knows she's learning her way around. So she's more of a threat than somebody that's coming out of the woodwork. So it needs to be
yeah,
somebody with some brand recognition.
exactly. The other thing is the Republican Party is the insurrectionist party. We kind of touched on that on
Mm,
Monday, and I wish if we can brand. That's what I'm talking about. Getting the progressive Illuminati. I need to find a better name for this. Maybe a progressive federation. All the different independent media. If we can convince even and get the progressives who are already in Congress on board with this messaging idea that the Republican Party is the insurrectionist party. Why? They have in the House hundreds of insurrectionists that didn't accept Biden as the president, and then in the Senate you had more than two. You had Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and others who didn't accept Biden over there, and they incited the crowd to come in and thank God we had people who died, but it could have been a lot worse. And this is my thing. This is the rule. Like until the leadership of the Republican Party deals with the insurrectionists in their party, and maybe not even the leadership, but the other moderates Republicans, like you would say,
mm,
Romney and those other people who consider themselves good Republicans, if they don't put pressure on Kevin McCarthy in the House and Mitch McConnell in the Senate to do something, whether it's censure them, whether it's to unseat them, they need to do something to reconcile for these insurrectionists. The whole party, the whole bunch of them, is spoiled the whole bunch. They're an
mm.
insurrectionist party, and if we can message that to we're gonna that's gonna discourage. Hopefully, we can discourage Biden from trying to always reach out his hand to try to work with them. Hey, Biden, why are
Yeah,
you trying to work with insurrectionists? Go ahead, Carlito.
yeah. I think a problem the Democratic Party has is that they have this fetish about
Yeah.
civility. Or they think that they always not mentioning the truth is being
Mm-hmm.
civil. You
Yeah.
could be civil against somebody, anybody, but you cannot take for granted the fact that they're insurrectionists. For example,
Yeah.
you can't just put civility above the security of members of Congress. We have somebody threaten the life of AOC, and
Mm-hmm.
he was arrested. The lawyers try to say, like, it's just banter. People talk about on social media, they don't really mean it, but he actually went over there. He was in the Capitol looking for her, so it
Yeah.
wasn't just empty rhetoric or whatever. So you have
Yeah.
these senators that are inciting these people to act this way, because not everybody, you figure that when people talk reckless like this, people are gonna know, like, ah, yeah, he's just talking. But there's always some people that are a little off in their head that
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
gonna you
Mm-hmm.
know kind of go through with their plans. And
Yeah. Of
unfortunately,
course.
it's a lot more than I ever seen with the whole QAnon people, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that are going to believe this kind of rhetoric, and to this day, they got millions of Republicans thinking that the election was a fraud.
Yeah, exactly. They had people going after, yelling Nancy Pelosi's name, people yelling Pence, his name out there. They had the guillotine outside waiting for him. It could have been a lot serious. That's like, did they need a congressperson to get swept up in this riot and die, for something serious, more serious to happen? We talked
Yeah,
about it
they
on
did.
Monday. Go ahead.
They did. I tell you why.
Go
Because
ahead.
this is the Republican Party lacks empathy. It is always the
Mm-hmm.
case with a lot of different legislation that they do not care until they're hurt personally. Like
Yeah.
with gay rights, is one example. They didn't really care about it until some Republican politicians or some well-funded Republican donors had family members that were gay, and then all of a sudden they care about,
Yeah.
the rights of gay people. So until it hurts them personally, they don't care. They like empathy.
And that's the thing. It came close to their door. A lot of these moderate Democrats, and I mean Republicans and Pence, they might have thought they were safe, but they could have themselves could have been swept up in this riot and gotten hurt. So I don't understand what it takes for them to have to really hold themselves accountable. So I'm hoping that if calling them the insurrectionist party and continue to say we can't work with them until they fix what they have going on, that's one thing that hopefully that's a strategy that can cause them to say, you know what, we're going to have to go without them, and we're going to have to. It gives a little bit of political capital to a Bernie Sanders, who says, eventually at some point he's going to come out and he's going to say we need to use reconciliation to pass these, because they're already a big debate now with raising the minimum wage. That came out, the plan to do that, but Republicans are against it, and various other issues. The $2,000 checks. They're talking about, Joe Manchin is now talking about he wants to give it only to certain people. They want to means test it, and that's not what they said in Atlanta, where you are right now in Georgia. So it's starting to creep back and go back. So we definitely need to come together as a community and figure out how can we put these pressure on them,
Yeah,
and be
well, to
ready
go
for it.
back
Go ahead.
around, that's why we need to get rid of the filibuster, because
Exactly.
if we have a simple majority, even the senators that are against the particular bill, they're going to see it's going to pass. They're going to be is popular. So what they're going to do is maybe try to get in there, maybe try to get something that they might want put into the bill, something, so they're not seen as complete losers. They're
Yeah.
going to try to work together to get something that they want in there when they know it's going to pass anyway. And the thing with the filibuster is that it is necessary for us as progressives to have it to be a simple majority, because everything that we want is a big ticket item. Everything that we want is a big change that
Yeah.
is necessary. A Medicare for all is something that needs to be something big this way. Legitimate, like big climate change legislation.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, the conservative stand is to do nothing. They want to preserve, they want to conserve. So every little thing, every big thing that has happened in this country has been through a giant progressive legislation. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not going to happen that way. And we need to get rid of the filibuster because of it.
100%. We gotta get rid of that, and the additional thing is, if we can get that framework to pressure Joe Manchin and Christine Cinema, when it is time to then get the 51 votes, which would include them, we would need them on board. We would already have that threat in place, ready to go again when they want to say, oh, we need to water this down or water that down, or we need to means test the $2,000 check or the $1,400 check actually. We will have that pressure, the TV ads ready to go. Hopefully, we could get primaries for these guys and have that ready to go.
And one of the things that I hear mentioned a lot is that we can't get rid of the filibuster because what will happen when we're in the minority? And to that I
Yeah.
say it's like, well, if you pass legislation that the people actually want, maybe you won't be in that minority. That's why the Democrats had large majorities for I don't know how many years, in the 50s, 60s, uh, you know, up until Nixon, the Democrats basically ruled everything. And that's because they were doing what the people wanted until, various things. One being, the the way Newt Gingrich kind of started the wave. Well, actually, with Nixon, it started the wave of taking things like that maybe they were small, but making it into big issues like uh, the abortion issue. It wasn't that big a deal until they made it a wedge issue. They try to focus on wedge issue in order to divide us and make people into single issue voters. And then also a big thing was basically the Civil Rights Act. Once that passed, LBJ became a pariah, and the Democratic, there was a big shift with the racists going into the Republican Party because they didn't like the Democrats anymore because they were pro equality. And one thing that I learned reading about the filibuster, is that, like I was saying about racism, that is the main reason why the filibuster was used all the way from slavery, but even after slavery. So in the 87 years from when Reconstruction ended until 1964, the only category of bills that were filibustered to a halt were civil rights bills. That
Wow.
means starting with like just anti-lynching bills, just don't lynch people. They were against that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
No poll taxes, they were against that. So everything that had to do with race relations and giving equal rights to black people, they were filibustering, and that's the only thing they used a filibuster for a period of 87 years. So it's crazy. And another thing is that with LBJ, his mentor was this guy named what's his name, Richard Russell. He was a senator from Georgia, Richard Russell. So but when he was in Congress, like for 30 years, he as a senator, I mean, he was the number one person that was filibustering for or against civil rights legislation. He led more filibuster against civil rights legislation than any other senator in his 30 years in the Senate. And the Russell Building is where many senators have their offices right now. And I didn't
Okay.
know this. And it was named after this. This is that self-proclaimed white supremacist. This is not
Wow.
anybody that hit it. And he was the mentor of LBJ. And once LBJ was pushing for civil rights legislation, he just basically disowned the dude. And
Okay.
when he died, there was talk of renaming the building, because you didn't want to have a building named after a, white supremacist. It was blocked. And you can imagine I'll give you one guess who said, nah, we're not going to change it.
Who didn't want to change it? Go ahead. Tell the people.
Mitch McConnell.
Oh wow, Mitch
Mitch
McConnell.
McConnell. He blocked it.
Jesus.
They didn't want the building where the senators have their offices to be named after a racist, piece of crap. And Mitch McConnell said,
Man,
nah, let's leave it.
this is all stuff that Democrats could have used. All of this. This is politics. I mean, it's you have to scheme. You have to not scheme is a bad word. Strategize to kind of get the narrative of the media, and let's say they should put that up. Maybe that should be the bill that they put up. Let's change the name and see what Mitch McConnell says. As soon as he says no, I'm against it. Well, give the history of what you just said, and let's continue to blow up this insurrectionist party strategy, because that is definitely going to be a way. Right now, the Republican Party is in shambles. There is a lot of potential for us to take advantage of the fact that they have the Patriot Party. I don't know how serious that's going to be, but that's breathing down Mitch McConnell's neck. and then we have this insurrectionist issue that's going on. We can't sweep it under the rug, and I already see the media moving on from that topic.
Right. So in my reading, I was listening to an interview from this guy that was let me see, I think he was chief of staff for Harry Reid. His name is Adam Jenelson,
Okay.
deputy chief of staff for Harry Reid. And his book was called Kill Switch, The Rise of the Modern Senate and the Crippling of American Democracy.
Mm.
So, he was asked about this because, Harry Reid famously eliminated the filibuster for judicial nominees.
Mm.
And people are saying, well, see, that's why then Mitch McConnell changed it for Supreme Court justices. But the fact is that he was going to do it regardless. Mitch McConnell is all about power. But when they were asking him about, are you just, saying this because the Democrats are in power now? He said, nah, I wrote this book before these elections. So it was before that. But he
Wow.
said, but I think that you really have to step back and look at this on a balance, because there is no question that the filibuster, both right now and in the last few years under Trump and historically, have always benefited the side of reactionary forces and the side of conservatives far more than it benefits the side of progress and the side of
Mm-hmm.
liberals. The actual number of things that will have been blocked by Democrats if the filibuster had been in place under Trump are actually relatively low. Most of what Republicans wanted to do, they were able to do through end runs around the filibuster that already exists in the Senate rules, like budget reconciliation that Bernie wants to use. And many of those paths don't address liberal priorities in the same way, because liberals tend to want to do bigger things with government. Liberals primarily benefit from passing big legislation, expanding the safety net, expanding civil rights, and those sort of things. Most of those actions are only capable of being done through legislation. So it's much easier to benefit from the ability to block things if you're a conservative. So all they do is block. As we saw under Obama,
Yeah.
it was unprecedented since
Yeah.
2007. The number of filibusters just basically went crazy when Obama was president, and it's because all they do is block.
Now we got to talk about the differences between a standing filibuster and a legislative filibuster, right? So the standing filibuster is where you have to stand up and you go on the Senate floor and you talk until either 60 senators end the debate, or you talk until you pass out, right? Because you can only
Mhm.
drink water and eat food. 48 hours standing there, you can only last so long. And then there's the legislative filibuster, where, just to boil it down simply, is the threat of a filibuster. They're just saying, hey, they raise their hand and say, I will filibuster that law. And then it needs, all of a sudden now it needs the 60 votes, right?
Listen, not even that. What I learned is that they don't even have to do that. An aide for the senator could call and say, hey, my senator wants to filibuster. The senator doesn't have to do
Wow.
anything himself. He
Yeah.
could even do it through email.
They see?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's not,
they don't have to stand. It's ridiculous.
yeah,
They can
that's
just tell
not
her, hey,
democratic.
my dude, just tell him I don't like this. Tell him I'm going to filibuster, and it's done,
Yeah.
and that's it. And the another crazy thing about it is that not only is just blocking, just the fact of filibustering, of that, sending that email, it adds a week of floor time to the calendar to every bill
What?
that is filibuster. So that means it's backing up legislation,
Wow.
and at least 1 week it backs it
Wow.
up. So it makes a big bottleneck of bills, and that's how they just able to obstruct and nothing gets done. And
Yeah.
since Mitch McConnell's in that majority, he's the one that gets to decide what bills come up to begin with. So anything else, he decides, and then everything else he just blocks it, and it's in limbo until he feels like it.
That's another reason to kill the filibuster. We're living in dire times right now. We got the pandemic going on. We need the stimulus bill to go through. I listened to Nina Turner on Jared Sheridan's show the other day, Status Quo, and she gave a example of just somebody drowning, and we can't have a committee of how to save that person drowning. We got to jump in and just save that person. We can't have a meeting. How are we going to save that person? Do we use a ladder? Do we use our hand? Do we send in a boogie, like a floater, to save the person? No, we need somebody to just jump in and save that person. And by Biden saying, oh, you know what? We can do it by reconciliation, but I want to see if I can work with the other side. No, you can't work with the other side. And matter of fact, we don't have time to work with the other side. We need to go through reconciliation now. We need to get all our democratic priorities through now, and also make sure that it doesn't get watered down by the Republicans. Furthermore, the moderate Democrats.
Yeah, and it's not about just doing whatever we want and ramming it through, because that's the excuse that people are saying, like, Ted Cruz and the others. It has to be legislation that people actually want. We have
Yeah.
polls saying that people would love to have a Medicare for all. They would love to have a $15 minimum wage. These are things that people actually want, and that will actually get more voters out to whatever party gives it to them. So
Yeah.
why not be the Democratic Party?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. I want to show this video real quick. Hopefully.
Hey, while you look it up, this one other thing that I learned. The term the filibuster,
Oh
it
wait.
originated from
So
an
you
18th century word called filibuster, which
okay.
referred to pirates who pillaged the Spanish colonies in the West Indies.
Yeah.
So so basically our pirates. That's where the word filibuster come from, and now it's switched to basically people holding people the whole Senate hostage with their words.
Wow. So Carlito, you didn't hear that sound just now because I was just playing video. Did
I
you
did
hear it?
not.
Not hear it? Okay. Okay. Let me try one more thing. If it doesn't work, then I'm just gonna move on. Let me play it right now. Can you hear that?
No.
All right. All right. We'll move on. So basically, the point I was trying to play was a Morning Joe clip, and one of the points that was made was Katty K was on there, and she said we saw this play out in the House with Abigail Spanberger. She said if we take the position that AOC is taking, we're not going to get elected. And basically, the point that they were trying to make was that Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, they need people. Joe Scarborough was talking about how people were attacking them on Twitter, saying like they're not real Democrats because they don't want to vote to get rid of the filibuster. And Katty K was trying to make the point that because they're coming from Arizona and West Virginia, which is mainly like Republican states that usually they have Republican senators, that they need to represent their constituents. But my point is AOC and the squad and progressives, they're representing their districts when they talk about defund the police. Well, only Cori Bush was talking about defund the police. But when we're talking about Medicare for all and we're talking about all these other legislations, Abigail Spanberger was the person complaining about them. So Katty K try to flip the point here, and I thought that was really interesting. That I think other people
it's hypocrisy.
Talk about
It's hypocrisy.
Exactly.
Because when it's a conservative, they want to make an excuse for them. Listen, they have a red or purple district, so they have to do this. Yeah. Well, if it's somebody from a blue district, they have to do that. Exactly. And if that's the way it is, why are you blaming your loss on somebody in a district in another state that has nothing to do with you?
Exactly. That's the hypocrisy right there. All right, we're going to head out at 7:00. We wanted to do this only for 20 minutes, so we had 30 minutes. So I'm just going to touch on real quick the other topic, and basically, picture here. I wanted to talk about Gary Chambers, who is going up against this person right here, and this is her website here. Her name is Karen Carter Peterson. All right. And she got endorsements from Emily's List, and I don't know these other people, but Emily's List.
What her name got to be Karen though?
I know, right? Oh man, you good catch. But this is her face, and so she's the progressive in the race. But look who she with, and I mean, I don't want playing devil's advocate. Not everybody that takes a picture with Hillary Clinton, because Ayanna Pressley was for Hillary Clinton, and now she's a Justice Democrat who's an advocate for Medicare for all. But it does have to tweak your interest. Like, here is someone that was for Hillary Clinton when you had the obvious progressive in the race was Bernie Sanders. So Gary Chambers was a Bernie Sanders supporter, but now he's running against this person right here, who she is also under her priority. She has Medicare for all. So when I first looked her up, see if it's here right. When I first looked her up, I saw Medicare for all, and I was like, okay, we got somebody. Here we go, fighting for Medicare for all. I said, okay, we got somebody fighting for Medicare for all. But as soon as I put that out on Twitter, I got a couple tweets back saying, no, she's the fake progressive in the race. And then at this time, Gary Chambers, unfortunately, he still has to fill out his website. But I saw a video where he talked about Medicare for all, He talked about Green New Deal, and because he endorsed Bernie or was for Bernie in the past, that gives him, to me, way more credibility. So tomorrow, I'm going to talk to someone who is with Louisiana for change. No, Louisiana. Let me see if I can look it up. But it used to be Louisiana for Bernie,
Mm.
and I'm going to talk to her about the details about there's a little bit of some drama that happened where let me bring it back to you, Carlito. Where our revolution endorsed Karen,
Oh, really?
right? So I know she said she was so pissed off. She reached out to me on DM to send out a tweet, and of course I support Gary, so I sent out a tweet in support. But I want her to talk about the details of Louisiana politics and how some of this stuff might have went down. So hopefully tomorrow, look out for that. And any last words, Carlito?
Yeah, I mean, for Gary, I'm a supporter. Ever since he went viral, him
Yeah,
taking down, speaking against the politician in his district,
yeah,
articulating very well the issues in his community. So he's everything he's saying is great, right to the point. Medicare for all, infrastructure for the areas where he lives in, for his people,
yeah,
and he just gotta. I don't know. He needs to put that issues page for because
yeah,
I'm not from Louisiana, so I only know him from like Twitter,
yeah, yeah,
So if I
yeah.
want to learn more about him, I got to go to a website. So he got to put in a little bit more details. But I mean, he seems to be a good progressive.
Mhm.
I'm supporting him right now, and and good luck to him.
Yeah, and he sent out a tweet. He was forming his platform, and hopefully he'll be launching that soon. But here's
It could
Louisiana.
be a progressive gauntlet candidate right there.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm going to try to reach out to him and see if I could get him in the Progressive War Room. I would love to do an interview with him. And Louisiana for Bernie. This is the progressive organization in Louisiana. So anybody out here in Louisiana, reach out to them, find out how you can organize with them, and more importantly, organize for Gary Chambers over this fake progressive. Because there's two other establishment candidates in the race, and if we had Karen drop out, that would give Gary the main lane to
Hmm.
run. But I'm for democracy, but basically I'm for letting people know, letting the people know the truth and letting them decide. So hopefully we could get the word out. All right. All right, Carlito, any other last words before we go?
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. All right. Much love to everybody. Thank you for coming out and listening to us. Have a great one.